Hey, welcome to the Manhood Podcast. Little James Brown, Mr. Stubblefield on the drums. You don't know how many songs have been sampled to that beat right there, okay? My man is doing it. Welcome to the Manhood Podcast. Provider, protector, procreator, promise keeper. That's who we are as men. That's who we should be. Taking care of our families, taking care of our children. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about being a provider as a father. Many times that scares us as a father, and for various reasons. And I think you're going to walk away with a little bit different perspective once I'm done here. Usually when we think about providers, we're thinking about money. Got to bring home the bacon, got to put food on the table, got to put a roof on that child, over that child's head, got to put clothes on his back, send him to all kinds of camps and basketball, baseball, football, and all of those wonderful things activities we love for our kids to do. They all cost money. And many times as fathers, we need to be there to provide those things. We get caught up in child support. Listen, you should be taking care of your child. Hopefully you don't have to go to court to do it. You should voluntarily do it, take care of your child. But if you got to go to court to do it, you got to go to court to do it. I read a statistic the other day. It said about 76% of fathers are paying child support. 76%, 3 out of 4. I was like, that's just crazy. But I also found out that about 25%, 1 in 4 children grow up without a father. Let me just grab my notes here. What do Adele, Mariah Carey, 50 Cent, Pierce Brosnan, Sean Combs, Jodie Foster, Samuel L. Jackson, Lil Wayne, Alicia Keys, Quentin Tarantino, Keanu Reeves, Kanye West, Halle Berry, Kelly Rowland, and Jet Li all have in common? They all grew up without their fathers. For whatever reason, their fathers were not there in their lives. And we've talked about LeBron James, and I'll probably get in a little bit of Kirk Franklin towards the end of the podcast. But these people all are unbelievably famous, unbelievably successful in life, and they did it without their fathers. So there is something that a father provides that will not keep you from being successful, but it can. It can be crippling. It can be extremely, extremely devastating not to have your father there in your life. Fatherlessness can be due to just divorce, could be death, incarceration, or a father who just did not know that he had a child. And if you've listened to episode, was it episode 3 or episode 2 of season 2, you will hear the Antoine Fisher story. Listen to my partner, Kenny Bryant, talk about his story. And he just never knew who his father was growing up. It wasn't until he was 34 years old that he found out who it was. But you can also have a father who is physically present, but emotionally unavailable. He might be an alcoholic. He might be on drugs. He might not emotionally be there. And in season 1, we talked about your fathers being human beings and some of the stuff that they have to deal with. And they're carrying a lot of the trauma they might have picked up from their own fathers, leading into them becoming fathers. Also, you could have fathers who are just inconsistent, never around. There are situations where the mother actively worked to keep that father out of that child's life. Ladies, you don't know the damage that you're doing to your child by keeping that father away from that child. You definitely want to keep the father there in their lives in some way, shape, or form. Reconcile your relationship or put it to the side, your relationship with that dad, so that your child can have a relationship with their father. And we'll talk today about some of the things that a father can provide besides money, and we get caught up in that whole money thing. I looked up some statistics. It says kids who don't have a father in their life, 85% of them have behavior problems in school. They just bad kids. They talk back. They're unruly, doing all kinds of things they have no business doing in school. And they find that 85% of those kids who do these things disruptive in school don't have fathers at home. 71% of kids that grow up without fathers. Let's put it like this. Education-wise, kids that struggle with their grades, struggle in school, struggle learning, comprehending, just doing well in school, getting halfway decent grades, 71% of them grew up without fathers. 71% of teenage pregnancies are to young ladies who don't have a father in the house. It seems there are some guidelines, a role model, some things that a father should be there to provide and say, hey, young lady, don't do this, or hey, young man, don't do that, because that young lady did not get pregnant by herself. Hey, young man, don't do this. That is not there when the father is not there in the house. So they become very promiscuous. And finally, drug abuse. Children who grow up without fathers are more likely to experience or take part in abusing drugs. A quote that I picked up: abandonment issues flow through the family like a deadly plague. It affects the entire family, the children, the mother. Many times it affects the mother-in-law, maybe possibly the father-in-law, but it is a burden on the entire family, that father not being there. Now, I don't like to draw negative pictures, okay? I just wanted to bring you some statistics, some facts about some of the things that are going on with fathers not being in the house. Quick story that happened to me. My late wife and I and the 4 kids, we all moved from New Jersey to Delaware. I was still working in New Jersey for probably 6 or 8 months before I got another job. And the late wife and the kids were living in an apartment in Delaware, living in one city, and the kids were going to school in another city. Whole different story. I want to go into that. Going to school in another city. Long story short, she had to get up early, drive them about 20, 25 miles to school. She was taking my oldest son to school first because he was in high school, and then my younger son, who was in middle school, dropping him off second, thinking that the high school started school before the middle school. It did not. The middle school started before the high school. So my younger son had a string of lates going to class. One day she drops him off, and the principal is standing outside and asked her to come inside. Now, she's got a toddler, an infant, and she just thought she was dropping them off and kept going. She wasn't dressed to go inside. She might have had on some sweats. She might have had on some pajamas just to drop them off at school because she was going back home with the 2 babies and going back to sleep. Well, the principal saw her, assumed that she was an uneducated single mother with 4 kids who was struggling to get her kids to school on time. And he came out and he asked her, he said, is there a father in the house? Is there a man in the house? The person that I am and the father that I am, that struck a chord with me. My late wife, Lisa, it struck a chord with her that he assumed that we were uneducated. Well, we had an appointment with him a couple of days later, went in, sat with him, and explained to him what the situation was, and that, yes, they have a father. Yes, both their parents are college graduates. That was not the issue. He made some assumptions based upon what he saw. And I think all of society is that way. But they were wrong assumptions. All right. So he was assuming there was a bigger problem there than what there was, because I think he probably knew some of these statistics and was looking for a way to even help out. So I don't want to, villainize him for what he did. He probably should not have made those assumptions. He probably should have asked some questions first, but it was a little disheartening. But as fathers, we provide so many things besides money. I was looking at videos on Kirk Franklin, and as successful as he is, he's been in the music industry. It's been 30 years since his first album dropped and went platinum. He's won multiple Grammys. He's produced albums and songs for so many different artists, and is just known worldwide for his music and some of the stuff outside of music. We've all heard about the videos or recording with his son and everything else. But in watching his Father's Day video, he finds out that the man he thought was his father, who had died, and when he died, Kirk Franklin hated him. And that might be a strong word, but he hated him. Finds out that was not his biological father. One of his singers had gone to a funeral, and at the funeral met a man who said he used to date Kirk Franklin's mother, and the singer looked at this man and said he looked like Kirk Franklin, had many of the same features: ears, nose, mouth, many of the same features. The man volunteered to give a DNA sample. He gave the DNA sample to the singer in the band. The singer in the band took it to Kirk. They had it tested. It came back 99.95%. This was his biological father. Kirk was, the first thing he said when he got the phone call was, "My mother lied to me again. My mother lied to me again." Think about that. Lied to him about who his biological father was. And that's not uncommon. I've talked to other people who have done that. I know a woman who is a clergy who to this day has not told her daughter who her biological father is. She actually believed the man that raised her, which would have been her stepfather, is her biological father. That child is dealing with depression and self-esteem issues even now. I think something in her knows that that's not her biological father, even though he's passed on. So something is just not right within her. So it's not uncommon for a mother to say, "No, that's not your dad." But going on with the story, Kirk now confronts his mother, who he did not grow up with. Kurt was adopted when he was 4 years old by a 60-year-old woman. His mother would come and visit him once or twice a year. You got to go watch the documentary of Kurt Franklin. So he was not raised by his mother, but he confronts her with this information. His mother denies that man is Kurt Franklin's father. Think about that. You have a DNA test that says 99.95% sure that this is your biological father. And the woman that gave birth to you, who was intimate with this man, says that, no, that's not your father. There must be a mistake. They did another DNA test. Came back with the exact same results. Exact same results. 99.95% sure that this man is his biological father. Only to have his mother deny it even still, that this is not your biological father. I told you who your biological father was. So Kirk Franklin said he was in a state where he knew the science says yes, but his mother says no. The man is saying, yes, I am your father. But how do you now accept this man as your biological father when your mother, who you don't necessarily have a trusting relationship with is saying, no, this is not your father. Kirk Franklin talks about how he is driven for approval. If he had an album that did not go platinum, say it went gold instead of platinum, terrific sales still, he felt as though people did not love him anymore. And he was driven by that. And if he did not have the same success he had on the previous album, he was hell to deal with at home. His relationship with his wife would be strained. His relationship with his kids would be strained because he did not have the approval. He was looking for that approval, that affirmation, self-esteem, self-confidence that he should have gotten from his father. He was looking for in other places, but was not getting it. And those are the things that we as fathers can provide for our children. Self-esteem, confidence, the ability to trust someone, being consistent in their lives gives them a sense of trust. Speaking life to them. Oh, you did a great job today. You're going to grow up and you're going to be a football player. You're going to be a basketball player. You're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher. You're going to be whatever you want to be. Whatever you put your mind to, you can do. And as a father, telling your child that, it's a little different than a mother telling your child that, not to negate what a mother does. This podcast is about fatherhood. As a father telling your child that, it means something different. It gives that child a basis. I know so many children who did not get that affirmation from their father when they were young, and they look for it. Looking for love in all the wrong places. Looking for the love of a father in all the wrong places. A young woman will look for love that she did not get from her father in another man. She may find herself going after older men who would remind her or be a father figure to her, and may end up being abused. Physically, emotionally, financially, mentally, just abused because she is looking for something she did not get. And as men, we do the same thing. We're looking for affirmations that we did not get. You know, you hear Deion Sanders. He's the hottest thing in sports right now. That's all everybody wants to talk about is what he's doing at Colorado State. But he talks about, as a child, playing sports, 4-letter athlete. He ran track. He played basketball. He played baseball. He played football. Lights out at all of them. Won all kinds of accolades, all kinds of awards, but his father wasn't there. His stepfather couldn't be there. He was working. His mother was working. They could not be there. He became his own cheering section. He excelled so that he could get the accolades and the affirmation that he was not getting from his father. And he talks about it. You can go look on YouTube at some of the videos that he has out there. Playing football, playing professional football, playing professional baseball, finding himself in a hotel room, miserable. He talks about having hundreds of pairs of shoes, houses, cars, everything, and not being happy, not being content in who he is. There's a peace that comes from knowing who you are and where you came from. And a father gives you that in so many different ways. And it doesn't have to be the ideal married couple, husband and wife, married forever, give birth and raise a child. Talk to some of the folks that I've interviewed already this season. Well, great dads that were not there with their children. One was not there with their children. He has grown children. One is still raising his teenage son long distance, and they're doing amazing things. They're actively in their child's life, regardless of the distance. They can do things virtually now that you could not do 20 or 25 years ago. But the one dad, Kenny Bryant, 20, 25 years ago, he's raising his son. His wife calls him the man maker. The man maker. You got to listen to the interview and see. So it does not have to be that ideal situation. You can still impart these things into your life, into your child's life. And listen, you don't want to miss one thing that your child is doing in their life. I tell dads, especially new dads, during that time from birth to about 2 years old, your child is growing so fast, changing day by day, walking one day, running the next day. Well, let's start with crawling one day, walking the next day. And when I say the next day, it might be 60, 90 days later, they're now doing these things. Just amazing. And the less time you spend with them, the more time you spend away with them, the more of these things that you miss. And I'm not saying, be there just for them. Be there for yourself. You want to be able to cherish those moments when they're older. My kids are all grown now, and I tell them stuff that happens with them when they're a child. My second son, he has 2 daughters. I have 2 granddaughters out in Portland, Oregon. And when I see my grandchildren doing things that their father did, and I'm able to remind him of what I saw and what he did and what he said and send him pictures and stuff because I was there. And now I can fill him in on the things because he don't remember. He was a baby at the time. So be there for your children. Be that provider. It's more than money. Trust and believe it is more than money. Go to their events. Listen to them. Teach them how to react emotionally to things. Joseph, who I did an interview with, he talked about his father not being there, and he doesn't feel like he was tough enough. Joseph got to be about 6'4". Joseph's a big dude. Okay, he walked in the room, everybody's scared of him. He said he was not tough enough because he didn't have a man in his life to make him tough. It's another thing a father can provide. Father provides a role model for his daughters and for his sons. A father will teach his children how to treat a woman. Father will teach his children how to treat a woman. And as fathers, we pray from the time our daughters are born that they find a man that will treat them well. Well, if those young men have never been shown how to treat a young lady well, guess what? There aren't many out there who will treat a young lady well. We have to be those role models, teaching them how to treat the women in their lives and treat them very well. There are just so many intangibles that we can talk about. Trust. Children that grow up without their dads suffer from mental illnesses, suffer from depression, suffer from anxiety and different things. And this podcast is about fatherhood. I can say the same thing about children that grow up without their mothers, but I'm going to stay here on fatherhood. Children who have a father in their life believe that they can succeed in life, regardless of the father's position in life. And I've seen it over and over and over again. I've seen it intimately over and over again. Child could grow up with a stepfather, and their desire is always for their biological father. Interviewed brother last season on the podcast who talked about that. Had a great dad, selfish dad versus selfless dad. Go back and look at the podcast. And he talked about his stepdad raising him the right way, doing all the right things, treating him like it was his own son. But as he got older, he wanted to get away and get to his biological father. And he saw his biological father had changed. He used to be a street dude, hustler, had been to prison, had gotten out of prison, gotten married, had other children, and was actually being a great father to those other children. Leaving that son to wonder why. Why didn't he want me? And you start scratching away at the surface, and that's what a child is really asking. Why was my father not there? Financially, that child struggles, and we talked about that in season 1. Also, there's a lot of great material there. Go back and listen to some of the podcasts in season 1. But struggling financially without that father there is one thing. But then struggling emotionally, struggling in life, emotional scars, they're not seen, and they're a lot harder to heal than physical scars. Your body, you get a cut on your, cut your knee, cut your elbow, finger, whatever it may be, your body will heal literally in a matter of days from a cut like that. But the emotional scar of wondering why someone did not want you, why someone did not care, especially after you have your own children and see how the affinity that you have for them and the love that you have for your own child, how could somebody deny that? Let it never be said of you, dads, that you weren't there for your child. And it's never too late to be in their lives. If you haven't been, become part of their lives. Do whatever it takes. Fight. We had an interview with Barry last season. He said he's been to court over 30 times, paying child support, but no visitation. Every time he goes to court, she doesn't show up. They schedule another court date. Fight to be in your child's life. Be a part of their life. Give them a sense of belonging, a sense of hope. Give them the ability to trust. And we'll talk about being a promise keeper on top of that later on. But today we're just talking about providing for your child. It is much, much, much more than money. Give that child a fighting chance. Listen to the Manhood Podcast. Thank you for listening. Today, you can get us on Apple, on Spotify, on TuneIn, on Google Podcast, wherever podcasts are. Also on YouTube. I've done some great editing things. Well, I think of some great editing things on YouTube. You can view this all on YouTube. Listen, God bless you and thank you.